She was born in 1922. The first shadows fell around 1997, with blanks in her short-term retention and disquietingly uncharacteristic lapses in judgment. It's plain to us now that she's struggled to hide it for a couple of years. She's graduated to delusions and disorientation, and now some long-term memory loss, too. My mother's been severely, profoundly depressed since Mike's death, and I believe that this was the cause of her mental deterioration. I don't have hard, irrefutable clinical evidence that this is so. It's just what I know. I believe protracted despair weakened her, changed the physical structure of her brain, made her vulnerable to the disease. Chronic sorrow is a parasite. It eats your strength, appropriates your will, moves like toxic sludge through every system of the mind and body. And my theory is not so far-fetched. Everyone knows that depression compromises the immune system. Look at the statistics on cancer survival and mental health. How often do we hear about couples dying within weeks or days of each other? Alzheimer's is still a mystery, but they're slowly finding things out. Recent research points to an autoimmune disorder, an inflammation of the brain. So, there it is. I think grief literally burned out the circuits of my mother's brain. And it did it in a sly, self-serving way that points to itself as the culprit. It robbed her of her wit, intellect, judgment, and competence, but it made sure its own pathways were sturdy and intact. She forgot everything, but she didn't forget her grief. It stayed vital, grew stronger, gathered momentum. If I'm completely wrong and my mother was going to lose her memory even if Mike hadn't died, her illness would not have taken the form that it did, fueled by heartache and vodka, shaped by desolation. None of this would have happened. But Mike did die, and it did happen. In mid-November 1989, late in the afternoon, my mother and brother and I filed into the intensive care unit of a major San Diego hospital. We stood in awe around Mike's bed. He was just coming out of the anesthesia after a major and radical 6-hour operation where they'd opened up his chest and put him on a heart-lung machine. This had not been bypass surgery or anything else we've all heard of. This was such a rare, specialized, and risky procedure that only 2 hospitals in the country performed it. I'd never seen an ICU before. It was a temple of mystery with its hushed atmosphere, brilliant lights, and stupefyingly sophisticated technology. Mike's bed, the altar where human sacrifices were offered to a perverse deity with a jaded appetite. Mike struggled to focus. He grasped at our hands. My mother kissed him and spoke in his ear. He'd made it. All of us, Mike included, thought that if he died, it would be on the table. But he'd come through and opened his eyes. He was out of danger. Wrong. He was fully conscious for 11 days, during which he went from believing he'd made it to knowing he wouldn't, to knowing he'd be leaving my mother a widow at age 67. Unable to talk because of the respirator down his throat. On the day of his death, I had a genuine psychic premonition, something I'm not prone to at all. I heard my mother's voice just before the phone rang. Mike was husband number 3, 12 years younger than she, the love of her life. When they got together in 1966, he was 32 and she was 44. He was 55 when he died. Real heartbreak is another of those things you have to experience to fully appreciate. His death broke my heart, and it shredded my mother's. Just about everyone in the town where they lived was devastated. The mentally slow woman who sorted recyclables at the local market,